Hey scaredy cats, today I have a surprise guest from the horror community joining me to share a Skinwalker story that happened to him. If you like his narration, make sure to check out his channel. The link is in the description below. For starters, I'm a 17-year-old girl from Colorado. I'm white and I don't have a lick of Native American blood in me, but I don't think that really matters for this. My dad's side of the family all have farms in Minnesota built on land that was heavily populated by Native Americans well over a century ago. We know this because we found boxes on top of boxes of Native American artifacts, including tons of arrow and spearheads, ceremonial jewelry and pottery shards, tapping stones, and more. Every year during spring planting, the tractors bring up more. We have experienced paranormal happenings on our land, but I'm only there so often, so I've only experienced a very small handful of things that I couldn't explain away. For the most part, while I am Christian and a believer of the paranormal and supernatural, I like to find logical explanations to things. I'm often very curious, and it takes a lot to scare me. I've been through enough shit already to have lost most of my fear. But this year especially has been testing me on all levels. I had to fly back to Minnesota, which is where I really call home, the Wednesday after Memorial Day because my grandpa passed away on Memorial Day morning. His death honestly shocked us all. He was stubborn and strong, and despite his disabilities and illnesses, he always pulled through when he got sick, and was determined to return to the farm. But I guess he just couldn't take it anymore and passed away peacefully at home, surrounded by his wife and kids. He wanted all of his grandkids, including myself, to be at his funeral, so I flew in as soon as possible, leaving my life responsibilities in Colorado. My mom was nice enough to come with me, even though my parents divorced when I was a toddler. She just stayed at a hotel and out of our way for the most part, even though we invited her to Grandpa's wake and funeral. My mom wanted me to connect with my Minnesota family now more than ever. So the night of the day I flew in, my aunt offered to take me to my Uncle A's place for something to do. My Uncle A just lives a quarter-mile up the road from my grandma's farm, or across the field from it. Grandma's farm is visible from Uncle A's house, and I could easily walk to and from the houses. When I got there, my uncle almost immediately gave me a .22 caliber rifle and a Mountain Dew soda, and complained to me about his growing blackbird problem. He said he'd give me $1 a bird, so I agreed to go out there and shoot. It was getting dark and the sights on the rifle were off, so I didn't get anything at all except for leaves in the sky. If the sights on the rifle would have been good, I could have at least had $5 that night. My uncle had found his other .22 rifle with the good sights, but by then it was too dark to differentiate the blackbirds from the robins, and it's illegal to shoot robins in the state of Minnesota. So to pass the time, my uncle set up a pyramid of old soda cans and beer cans, and also balanced a few gallon caps on a gallon of laundry detergent for us to shoot at. My little cousins came out with their bows and BB guns, so my uncle and I would take turns showing the boys how to shoot their weapons, and fired our .22s as well. We were having a very good time, and I'd almost forgotten the main reason why I was in Minnesota in the first place. My cousins had gone down to the basement walkout where my aunt and uncle's wife were sitting. Meanwhile, my uncle and I continued shooting our .22s, when my uncle suddenly commanded me to stop shooting. He was tracking something with his finger. "What the fuck is that?" my uncle shouted under his breath. "What is what?" I asked, alarmed. I squinted to see what my uncle was tracking, and then I saw it. From our standpoint, we could see across many young fields over rolling hills. If you look to the left, you could see grandma's, and if you look to the right, you could see several more farms dotting the fields. If you look straight ahead, you'd see the side of a large hill with a field on it, and just ahead of that hill was a small grove of trees that also lined our property. The creature my uncle was pointing at was running parallel to the horizon and would eventually run across that hillside, which was no more than a quarter-mile away from us. It was hauling ass, running as faster than a racehorse. The creature was solid black, very large and slender, with a small head, extremely long and thin legs, and no visible tail. At first we thought it was a deer, but it was too slender and black to be a deer. Then I suggested it was a Great Dane or perhaps a horse, but no one in our area has a black Great Dane or any big black dog for that matter, nor does anyone have a black horse. And the way this creature was running, it didn't look like a horse either, or a Great Dane. It was about the size of a horse, but it ran a bit like a deer with a spring in its step. It had a hunchback and legs that were long and skinny like twigs, and its head was pretty small. It looked like a greyhound, but much, much larger, and it looked a bit distorted and twisted too. I don't really know how to explain that, I just knew it was pretty fucked up. I could tell the front of it was larger than its back, like its ribcage jutted out a bit, and while its front legs were almost like long human arms, its back legs were like a deer's. Only a bit more meaty than that, and its hip bones seemed to jut out like hips on a Holstein cow. It was galloping and gaining speed like it was on the hunt, but we didn't see what it was hunting down. I didn't get nervous until it banked our way and charged into the thin line of trees separating our property from the neighbors. This line was 2 trees thick at the most, and the trees were oak trees no older than 20 years. We should have been able to see the thing stop, especially since it was no more than 300 feet away when it ran into the trees. But we didn't see nor hear anything. Plus, even when it came this close, other than its size, there was nothing very clear about it. It was just slender, long-legged, puny-headed, and didn't have any visible tail. My uncle's wife suddenly called our attention, asking what the hell we were seeing, and said we were scaring my little cousins. My uncle described it just as I did, and I confirmed because she thought we were just bullshitting. My uncle and I stayed in our places, our rifles loaded and ready, and stared at those trees for a good 10 minutes, occasionally glancing at each other, and saw nothing exit nor heard anything move. It was a windless, quiet night, so we could hear almost everything, including the cows nearly a mile away. Needless to say, we were both pretty freaked out, and I spent some time on my phone that night, looking up various things to see if I could come up with a rational explanation for what we saw. I found nothing, except for Skinwalker stories and descriptions, which fit the creature we saw perfectly. I've heard of Skinwalkers before, and many stories, but never really believed they existed. Even if they did, I thought they were only in the southwestern states. But I guess they can appear anywhere.
The year was 2015. It was in the middle of September or October, and this happened to my fiance Kat, my buddy Matt, and myself. We were browsing the Weird New Jersey catalog one night, and we found a place called the Devil's Tower. It was about a half-hour drive away from where we were, so we wanted to go take a trip over there and visit it. Supposedly, the backstory was that a man built it, either in the 1800s or the early 1900s, I don't remember. And one day, when his wife was up there, she caught him with another woman from a high-powered telescope they had put up there for sightseeing. So distraught by what she saw, she leaped from the tower down to her death. I forgot what happened to the man, and I still don't know if that legend is true or not, but the tower itself looked pretty creepy in the book, and it was in a really desolate area with rarely any civilization. We eventually arrived to the tower, and immediately Kat felt a very unnerving vibe, like we didn't belong there or something. And Matt got the feeling that someone or something was watching us. We immediately noticed that the entire outside of the tower was fenced and gated off, so we couldn't even go inside or climb it. After a few failed attempts at trying to climb the gate, we decided to just walk around the tower, getting every single angle look at it that we possibly could. When all of a sudden, we heard something walking through the dry leaves in the surrounding dark wooded atmosphere. I figured maybe it was another explorer, since this place is a very well-visited area in the haunted location section of Weird New Jersey. But we couldn't see any beam of a flashlight, and I'm sure that if any person were to explore, they would certainly bring a flashlight or some sort of light, because it was nearly pitch black in those surrounding areas. The footsteps then got faster and louder, and it sounded like whatever it was running around us in a circle. Right before I can say something, though, Matt and Kat suggested we head back to the car and get out as fast as we can because something felt extremely wrong about being there, they said. When we got back to the car, though, Matt looked in the rearview mirror, and I saw his face turn pale white. I couldn't see anything, but he said there's two glowing orange eyes staring in our direction about 20 feet behind the car. As he started the car and flipped it in drive, he began driving off. But then Kat looked out the back window and said the eyes were still there, as if whatever that was had followed us, keeping at the same distance. I still couldn't see it, and I thought that they had both lost it at this point. But when both of them told me what they saw next, as whatever it was walked into a lit-up area of the dim streetlights, a chill ran right down my spine. They described a hunched-over creature, about 4 or 5 feet tall while hunched over, and probably a good 6 feet if it were standing up straight, with a long neck, the face of what looked like a deformed wolf, with glowing eyes and jagged teeth, the lanky body of a human, and claws on its hands that looked like eagle talons. When Matt stepped on the gas as hard as he could and the car took off, Kat screamed that it's chasing us, running like a zombie that just got half of its leg blown off, but it was running fast, still keeping at pace with the car 20 feet away. She said it didn't run off until we were out of the area, where it then went down on all fours and ran off into the surrounding tree line, but not before flashing what she described as a sinister grin towards the car. Even though I couldn't see what they described from my angle, something in my gut told me to believe them, since they both described the same exact identical features and they were never known to be liars. I'm convinced that what they saw was most likely a Wendigo, but it sounded more like what they were describing was a Skinwalker.
Hey Scaredy Cats, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss out on any of the stories. If you have any stories that you'd like for me to read, you can find the links for submissions in the description below.